Today, I'm going to show you organizational Zen labeling for your seeds using copper tags and a cool, unique popsicle stick seed cell labeling system. This might even just remove some of the plastics from your garden. Come on, we got to grow. We've showed you how to plant with popsicle stick tags. And we can do that right from the seed stage. When you plant your seeds, you can label them with a popsicle stick. And I've got a whole video on how to actually glue the seeds to the popsicle sticks. But maybe you don't want to use the popsicle sticks. One of the reasons might be because there is potential for mold, especially if you're using a lid to create humidity and keep your seeds moist. There's another way to label. There's actually a bunch of ways to label. But I'm going to show you two more ways to label your seeds so that you can keep track of what's what. That's super important. I neglected to do that the first year I started seeds. I just forgot to label them. And I had stuff in my garden I didn't know what it was. Now, maybe you like the surprise element of that. I didn't. I really wanted to know what it was because I needed to know how to treat it for pests. I needed to know what it was going to grow into, how big it was going to grow, so I knew what to plant beside it. It's just really important to know what you're growing and where. You should know. I'm going to show you how to use the copper tags. Now, these are great for things like perennials because this is going to stay with the plant for the whole life, its whole lifespan. These will last, oh gosh, probably up to 10 years. Now, they kind of tarnish a little bit over time, but that can actually be kind of aesthetic. They turn like some kind of green color and whatever, but it's just kind of cool, I think. These come in a little box, and when they come, they have a little bit of an oily coating on it. Now, you could just maybe rub it on your shirt or your pants. I found, because of the marker that I'm using a Stettler Lumicolor Permanent. This is a garden marker. And this is a special marker that actually resists light. It doesn't fade with light. It's also water resistant. So what I've done with all my tags is I've taken a little 70% isopropyl just on a little cotton cloth here, and I'm just going to wipe the side that I'm going to put the label on. Just going to wipe it clean and then wipe it dry. You don't want any residue of the oil, and you definitely want it to be dry. Otherwise, when you label it, it will probably run and just look kind of ugly. So this is going to be a Cienfuegos pepper. I'm just going to label this Cienfuegos pepper. Notice I'm labeling, put the lid back on that. I'm labeling just the one half because the other half is going to be stuck in the ground. And unless you're a worm who can read, you get what I'm saying? I've also labeled it so that it's close to where the hole is. There's a little hole there. And these tags come with little tiny copper wires. And these wires have disappeared from sight into the box. Let me just fish these out. So it comes with these. Then you just, as you're going, you just pull it out as much as you need. Clip it with a pair of scissors, and then you're going to put it through that hole, and that's how you attach it to the plant. Now, you're not going to do that right away. I'm going to show you a method of using this so that it stays with your plant forever. And the method is really simple. You're going to start by putting this with your seed, right into your seed tray, just like that. And these are really thin copper. They bend easy. Okay, so you actually want to stick this in the very edge. There's a smooth surface at the edge of the seed cell, and that will help this just to slide right in. If you try to push it into the middle, especially if you're not using a really fine seed starting mix, you might find that there's a stick in there and it pushes into the stick and then it'll bend. And once these bend, they just don't look as aesthetic. So you could also label these with a pencil. I'm going to go this side because that's better lighting. You can label these. You can see that this has been actually engraved. So I've written over the engravement with a marker. This is for my raspberries. And this one, I actually used a dull pencil. You could also use a ballpoint pen with the actual pen clicked out, so it's just the tip of the actual plastic sheath, not the pen itself. That worked really well for these. And I used a piece of leather. Whatever you have around the house that's a little bit soft, you don't want it too soft. You could maybe try a towel. I used a piece of leather, and that worked great for me. And then you basically just write as if you would on a piece of paper. The key to that is you actually want to be able to write big letters like this, whereas something like that, if you're writing that small on there, you're going to have a tough time writing with that kind of detail when you're doing the engraving. But you can do it. It's just a matter of what suits you. So this is how I do it. This goes with the seedling, and it stays with the seedling right until it's planted. Then, once it starts to grow, you can actually take that off, and you could even do this if you're starting inside. Once the plant is big enough to be able to wrap one of those little copper wires around, you can label it. And that label will now grow up with the plant. And, you know, if they're labeled and you have to kind of bend down and look in the ground and try to find it underneath all the foliage, great. But how much better would it be to have this thing just sitting at eye level, strapped to your plant forever? I'm also going to show you another method that allows you to use big popsicle sticks. Now, these are the jumbo size popsicle sticks. And these ones, you can see, have a label and a number. Now, what's that number for? I made individual seed cells. This gives me portability, and that portability is useful in so many different ways. These can now, I've potted up, or I've seeded up 1, 2, 3 12 cell trays, each of which have these inserts created to be portable. Now I've got 12, 24, 36. I don't always want to put these labels in my seed trays. There's an advantage to not having the labels in here, because if I'm using one of the strip lights, one of those long pole lights like these back here, I want to be able to get them as close as possible to the leaves. And with these sticks, sometimes they get in the way, especially when the seedling is just starting out and it doesn't even have its true leaves yet. This method is great. It allows me to create a label that stays with the seedling forever, and that's great. But there is some disadvantages, and I like to show you more than one way of doing things. Then you can pick the one that works best for you. And this one, the reason I've labeled this with a 31 is because that matches the number I wrote, and this is actually 21, but by way of example, this has a number on it. And that number I put onto the popsicle stick when I planted that seed. So let me just show you. I'll start from the top. We have our garden marker. We have our seed cells individually cut so that each one is its own, and we're just going to label it. Now, I've got, like I said, 12, 24, 36. If you're starting this and you're starting with your first seed tray, every number needs to be unique. You'd start with 1. Because I already have 36 cells labeled, I'm going to start with 37. So I'm just going to write on here, I'm just going to write 37. So that one will now go in here. And then I'm going to write on this one, 38, and so forth and so on until I get all 12 in there. Then I'm going to fill it with seed starting soil. And then I'm going to have a blank, empty seed tray. Then what I'll do is I'll grab some seeds. Let's just pick something at random. What do we get? We got zinnias. Now this is something I would direct so we'll try again. Let's see what we get. Mamma Mia Giallo hybrid. Peppers. Then we're just going to take this. We're going to put it in. And this one would be labeled 37. We're going to put that in there, plant it. Then we're going to take a popsicle stick. Popsicle sticks. I got these on Amazon for pretty cheap. These are my yellow popsicle sticks, and I use yellow for peppers. So I'm choosing my color code. I've got my labeling stick. Then all I have to do is write 37 on this one. 37. And then I label it Mamma Mia Pepper. Boom. Done. And then that, I'm not going to stick it with the seed. That's why I've got it labeled with a number. That's why I can coordinate the number on this stick with the number in the seed tray, which is unique, by the way, because each seed tray is its own individual insert, and each insert is labeled with a unique number. So this is actually going to go into a jar, and as you can see, I've been very busy. Right like that. When it's time for that seedling to be planted, all I have to do is pull it out, look at the number, find that number in my popsicle stick jar, and put that in the ground with the seedling. Okay, so that's yet another method of labeling. And the method you use may depend on who you are and what your preference is. It may also depend on what you're planting. For example, the purple amethyst raspberry, that's going to be in your garden a long time. It's a perennial, and it's probably going to last a while. Maybe you want a copper tag on it that's going to last as long as that raspberry plant. When it comes to a pepper, maybe you want to use the popsicle stick method because at the end of the year, you might just let that pepper sit in the ground and rot. You might as well let the label do the same. And there's yet another method, which I've showed you in another video. This method is the gluing the seed to the popsicle stick. And this is the jumbo popsicle sticks. You can do this with the little popsicle sticks as well for your seed trays. But these jumbo ones will go straight into the ground. In the spring, I walk out, I stick this in the ground, and I walk away. Yeah, maybe we'll water it in. So those are my methods for seed labeling. And I hope that you pick one. I hope that you use whatever one meets your needs. And if you do, share it with somebody. I know when I first started out, I was just floundering in terms of how do I label. I didn't like the little plastic labels that came with the plants. I was using markers that didn't actually resist the UV rays of the sun that faded. And I had little bits of plastic labels all over my garden come fall, and even into the spring this year, I'm still finding little labels everywhere. So this might be extremely valuable to somebody you know. Don't forget to share it. If you liked it, like it. If you want to subscribe, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss new exciting content. And I'm sure in the future, I'll have even more ways to label you might not have thought of. Thanks for growing along with me on this one. I hope you learned something. Until next time, I gotta grow.